Okay, so today I would like you to look at Google Sheets, and we're going to investigate how to calculate different things in Google Sheets, including some statistical values, but also just some basic calculations. And then we're going to look at probability distributions as well, just to kind of consolidate what we've done in class and analyze them that way. So, in Google Sheets, before we get to the actual data that I have in the sheet that you are going to open, you can also just do regular arithmetic. So let's say I wanted Google Sheets just to multiply 5 times 20. I would just press equals, so I would click on a cell that I wanted to do it in, and then I would just press equals, and then I would go 5, and I would use the asterisk above 8, and then times 4, and then when I press equals, it gives me the result. So you can see in the cell, it just shows the result. If I click back on the cell, I can see in the function bar the actual function or equation. And also, just if I double click in here, I can also see what was going on. Okay. Let's say I didn't want to multiply those numbers together. Instead, what I wanted to do was multiply 2 cells together. I can do the same idea. I can click on this cell, and then I can press the multiply, the asterisk, and click on this cell. And it's going to multiply those 2 cells together to give me this number. If I want to add the 2 cells together, if I had this already built, I can just overwrite that and change it into a plus, and it will add them together. Okay, so that is pretty handy that it can do all of those things. It also has built-in functions to be able to do some other things as well. So, let's say I wanted to calculate, these are marks for different students. So let's say I wanted to calculate the average for one of these grades. So if I want to calculate average, I'm going to press equals, and then I am going to basically guess what the formula would be called in Sheets. So, okay, if I want to find average, what kind of average do I want to find? I want to find the mean. All right, so if I type in mean, oh, there's no built-in function called mean. Okay, well, again, when people talk about the mean, they're usually talking about the average, the arithmetic average, right? So what if I use that word? Oh, okay. It has a formula for average. It says numerical average in a data set. It says it's ignoring all the text, so that's good. If I had random text mixed in, it will ignore that. So that's telling it what function to do, but now I need to tell it of what data do I want it to find the average, which numbers do I want it to find the average for. So then I start a bracket, and I'm going to select all the cells that I want it to find the average for. So in this case, I want it to find the average for everything in this column. So I've just clicked, and I'm still holding down my click, and then I'm going to drag down till the very bottom of that row of data. Now taking a peek in my formula, I can see I'm going from A2 to A60. So A60 is column A, row 60, so this cell. And I started way up at column A, row 2, so A2. And then the colon just says I'm going through that entire range. So I just close my bracket and I press equals. So that now tells me that the average grade 9 academic mark is 76.38983051. Who cares that it's 51 at the end, right? Those are such small decimals. If we think about the actual size of those are tiny. So we want to format this cell so that it doesn't show every single decimal value because nobody's got time for that. We just don't care. Normally, marks are either whole number or maybe 1 decimal place. So let's go to 1 decimal place. So I could go to format cells, or I can reduce the number of decimal places by using this function here on my menu bar. So I'm just going to press this a bunch of times till I get down to the nearest decimal place, nearest 1 decimal place. Now, Excel and Sheets actually keeps all of the value in its actual memory. So if I need this cell again and I reference it, it's going to actually use the exact value. It's just now displaying 1 decimal place, which is nice. Okay, so that tells me a measure of center. Measure of center, or central tendencies, are mean, median, and mode. Okay, we might also want to consider a measure of spread. Measure of spread says how spread out the data is, how diverse the data is, or how consistent the data is. So how close together are these grade 9 academic marks? Or how spread out are these grade 9 academic marks? So, to do that, the most basic form of measure of spread is the range. Not like domain and range, just like old school range, like how much does it spread over. Okay, so if I go equals again and I type in range, It says binomial distribution probability. We don't know what that is. We will look at that later on in the course, though, so that's interesting that it's in there. But that's not what I want for right now. So it doesn't have a built-in range function. Okay, so we failed on equation number 2. But let's just think about what is the range. The range is the maximum number minus the minimum number. So maybe it can find the maximum number for me. If I type in max, there we go. It can do max. So again, I put my colon. I can select them all, or I can just remember what I had before. I had A2 to A60. So that tells me the maximum mark. Now I'm going to need the minimum mark. What do you think the function would be for minimum mark? Excellent. That would be the minimum. Again, from A2 to A60. All right, so now, in order to get the range, I need to subtract from 97. And what do I need to subtract? I need to subtract the minimum, which was 54. I press equals. All right, so the reason that using built-in functions in a statistical software is amazing is because, well, A, I didn't want to type in all those numbers into a calculator. That would take me a long time. And this is a relatively small data set. In the world of data management, your data sets can get into the millions of data points. Nobody wants to do any of that by hand. The likelihood of you doing it correctly without making an error is minuscule. Okay? So that's one of the reasons why it's awesome. But the other really, really amazing thing is, let's say this student that got 54, let's say Miss Brown just had poor finger management that day and it wasn't a 54, it was actually a 94. If I had calculated all of these things, with this being a 54, and then I said, oops, sorry, it's actually 94. If I were doing it by hand, I'd have to retype in everything. But in an Excel or Sheets software, any kind of spreadsheet software, if I just change that to a 94, those both just change, or those all just change automatically, which is awesome. Okay, I'm going to put it back to 54. Now, the next thing I want to go over is how to format this stuff. And actually, before I do that, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause, and I want you to do all the things I just did. If you need to rewind through the video, rewind through the video. But in your software, in your spreadsheet, I want you to do the exact same stuff. Okay, so hopefully you paused and you did that. Now we're going to work at formatting a little bit. Because right now, this is looking a little messy. Things aren't labeled. I don't really know what everything is. So, a couple things I want to look at. First of all, this academic, it's cut off. It doesn't continue, so that's no good. So I can do a couple different things. I can just make this wider. But I mean, the numbers don't need that much space, so why does this whole row need to be that wide? Or whole column? So instead I'm going to actually make it a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to wrap the text around. So if I go up into my menu bar, and I've got things zoomed in a little bit more, so I have to go to my more. You might not have to go to more, it might be in yours. And I go to this button right here. This is called text wrapping. So if I click it, this middle one will wrap the text around. So now I can see both of that, which is great. I also want to maybe make my headings stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to put a little background behind it. I'm going to use some lovely Lucas Blue. I'm also just going to make it look like a heading even more. I'm going to put a little underline underneath it. That looks nice. Then the last thing I'm going to do for this part is I'm going to center everything, because rows of numbers look better centered. It's just visually pleasing. Okay, so that's good. That column looks pretty nice. The only problem is when I scroll down, I can't tell what class this is for anymore. Now again, this spreadsheet only has 2 rows, so my brain can handle remembering 2 things. But in the world of spreadsheets, in the world of data management, you can end up having, again, hundreds of rows, hundreds of columns. So I want to be able to see that at all times. So I'm going to actually freeze this top row, row 1, so that no matter what, when I scroll down, that's always visible. The easiest way to do that is to move your cursor. See how it's switching from an arrow to a hand? That's allowing me to freeze rows in this case. So I'm going to click and hold, and it made a little fist, like it's grabbing it, and I'm going to drag that down. I can drag it down as far as I want to lock in however many I want to lock in. I only want to lock in the top one. So if I lock in the top one, now when I drag down, that stays at all times. So that's awesome. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to format my numbers over here. I want to label all these things. Alright, so what was this top one? This top one was the average. Okay, so what average was it? It was the mean. So mean mark. The next one was the maximum mark. Oh, I capitalized that one, but didn't capitalize that one. That's no good. Okay, this one was the minimum mark, and this one was the range of marks. Okay, so that's nice. What were these numbers for? What class? These were for grade 9 academics. So I'm going to copy, just Control-C, Control-V. And then I'm going to format this with a little bit of color as well. I'm going to stick in my blue family, but maybe I'm going to put it... Well, let me just put it that blue now. And then maybe I want to put lots of borders. That looks nice. And center. Always like to have everything centered. That looks lovely. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to do that to this spreadsheet. And then I want you to add another column here with all the key information for the grade 12 course. And I want you to format the grade 12 heading as well. Okay. Then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write just a little paragraph describing grade 9 academic versus grade 12 data management. What things are similar? What do you find different? What do you find is interesting? That kind of thing. And you can just type that into a little box. How do we do a little box? Well, the easiest way, actually, is just to select a bunch of cells that you think will use up enough space. Just merge them together. And then make your text wrap. And then I can type all day long. And it's going to look like it's not going to wrap, but when I press enter, it wrapped around. Okay? So I want you to discuss in this box. I want you to compare the grade 9 class with the grade 12 class. I want you to write anything that you notice and wonder about in that box. Alright, so do that and then come back to me and we're going to get on to the next tab. Okay, hopefully you've done that. So what I mean by tab is your entire file is called a spreadsheet file or a workbook. On the bottom, we have different worksheets or tabs. So this one, we're on the statistics one. We can also click over and now we have the probability stuff. Alright, so again, I'm going to format all of this so it looks nice. I'm going to actually do that at the end because I'm going to have some more stuff in there actually. So I'm going to start my calculations and then I'll format. I will freeze my top couple rows though. I want my X, I want my frequency visible no matter where I am. Okay, so my X is my random variable. In this case, we're looking at male shoe sizes sold. And my F is always in this class going to be frequency. It's not function, it's frequency. Okay, so this is 32 pairs of shoes were sold for size 6 for males. All right, we want to make a probability distribution. So I want to make probability of X. I could get out a calculator and I can calculate the probability, but instead I want Sheets to do it for me so that if I have to change numbers, it'll automatically happen. Alright, so in order for that to occur, I'm going to need a total, because probability should be one of our big ideas from last lesson, is that it's the number of times that that occurred divided by the total. This is experimental probability, technically, okay? So I need to find a total first. So at the bottom, I'm going to write equals. And then, oh, look, it guessed what I wanted. Sheets is so smart. That's awesome. Okay. I want total. Total is the same as sum. All right. And it's going from B4 to B22. Well, I can tell that it's ending in the right spot, so that's good. Let's hope that it's starting at the right spot. Let's click it. Go up. That orange line stops there, so that is perfect. B4 to B22. So that's my total. I'm going to label it as total. You can also label it as sum, whatever you want. Okay, so now, what I want to do for this, if I want the probability of shoe size 6, I need to go equal this 32 in B4, divided by this right here in B23. So that just gave me the probability. Again, way too many decimal places, don't need them all. But I'm going to wait and I'm going to format that afterwards. If I want the probability of this one, I could again go, okay, this divided by this. But that's going to get a little repetitive. I don't want to have to keep typing in a very similar function. So what I can actually do, there's this blue square in the bottom corner. I can do what's called fill. I can fill that formula down. If I fill it down, it's going to shift my references. Which, oh, I was going to say is awesome, but we got a big error, so that's never awesome. It said divided by 0. It can't divide by 0. Let's figure out why it's trying to divide by 0. Okay, it's doing B5. That's good. That's what I wanted, B5. But then it's dividing by B24. Ooh, it shifted that down. That makes sense. It was shifting everything down. I don't want it to shift everything down. So I need a trick. Here is the trick. I'm going to lock in this 23 by putting a $sign in front. What that does is it locks in the 23. So now if I fill down, no matter which one I click on, it's still dividing by 23. The numerator has shifted down, so that's good. Alright, I also want to find a sum to make sure that's working, but I don't want to type in sum again, even though it's easy. This is already a sum. I'm going to shift it across. Now, it's calculating the sum of this one, which is 1, which is exactly what I want. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's format. I don't want to see all these decimal places, so I'm going to shrink this down. And right now it's written as a decimal. Maybe I want to see it as a percent. I can just click on this percent. Now everything's expressed as a percent. Awesome. Okay. Now let's say I want to look at a graph for this. In order to make a graph, I'm going to select everything I want to graph. I do not want to graph the totals. So I'm not selecting the totals, but I'm selecting everything else. I am selecting the headings. I want to insert a graph, so I'm going to go Insert. They call it a chart. Same. Insert chart. Sheets is going to guess what kind of chart you want. So we would call this a bar graph. It calls it a column chart. Again, same idea. Okay. If you ever want a different type, you're going to go to chart type. And you're just going to select whatever other one you want. It's got tons of different graphs we can make in here. But it guessed the right one. That's what we wanted. Okay. You'll see that it's trying to graph frequency and probability. I don't actually want to graph the frequency. I don't need to see that. So if I scroll down here under Setup, I can see stacking. No, I don't want to do that. That's the range I want to do. My x-axis is my x. That makes sense. Series. It's got f and p of x. I don't want f. I'm going to click on the 3 timbits, and I'm going to go Remove. Gone. Now it is just graphing the probability. Awesome. Okay, now we're going to customize it a little bit. We can do that in a couple different ways. So I can click on Customize, and I can start to do things in there. Or I can just do it right here, because I mostly just want to title some things. So I'm just going to double click on this title, and I'm going to go Probability Distribution of Male Shoe Sizes. Good title. Okay. X. Well, yes, that's my random variable, but what is X measuring? It is measuring male shoe sizes. Okay. This is measuring my probability, but it doesn't even have a label out there. So I can't double click on it and change it because it doesn't have one. So over here, Chart, Axis, and Titles. I'm just going to click Vertical Axis Title, and I'm going to title it Probability. Or actually, I'm just going to use the notation P of X. Done. Awesome. Okay. If you ever need to edit something in the chart editor in here, you need to customize or change something in the setup, and that's gone, if you just double click on some of the outside white space, it will pop right back up. So you can get that back up and do that kind of thing. All right, now, my graph is overlapping my chart. So that's no good. I can't see what my chart is. So I'm going to decrease this graph. I'm going to put it in here. Actually, I'm going to put it below because I want to do some more stuff beside here. You might have more space beside because you're probably not zoomed in as much as I am, but that's okay. So that's big enough that I can see what's going on. Let's say I wanted to calculate the average or the expected value. Well, again, we learned in class that I need a column for x, p of x. That means I need to multiply p of x times x, or x times p of x. There we go, we get that. I want to fill that down so that it does it for every single row. So now again, if I click on this one, it is shifted. It's now doing this x times this p of x. And then I need to find the sum. Shift my sum formula over. So the average shoe size for male is 11. 11.11. All right, again, I don't need all these decimal places. Let's get rid of some of those because that's way too many. There we go. Alright, last thing we're going to do is we're going to format this to make it look nice. So, I want to center everything. Centering always looks nice. There we go. Oh, that made a mess of this. Let's just merge all of these together. So merge is this one here. Oh, much better, much better. These are all my headings. So I'm going to fill that in, some nice Lucas blue. These are all totals, so I'm going to make those stand out. Let's go with a nice gray. There we go. I'm going to put a little kind of cap border on those ones. Maybe a little under border on that one. There we go. You could put some vertical borders as well. You can put as many borders as you like, but I like it like that. I think it looks good. And we've got all our stuff done, and we've got our graph. So again, I want you to go through and I want you to do all the things I just did. You can rewatch and you can pause at any point, so you can type in exactly what I typed in each cell. And then I want you to do the same thing to the female shoe sizes. Okay, and then again, underneath, I'm going to get you to merge some cells together, and I want you to just compare the two. State what's the same, what's different, what do you notice, what do you wonder. Just give me a little description of male shoe size distribution versus female shoe size distribution. Okay, so that is your online Sheets activity for today.